guys, my name is Tiffany and welcome back to Upcycled by Tito, where I take old forgotten items and give them a new life. In today's video, I'm going to show you how I turned this into this. So my inspiration for this dress is this Dolce & Gabbana dress. This is actually the second time I'm using a pre-made dress as inspiration. I made this Reformation inspired dress a couple months ago. I'm going to link that down in the description box if you guys want to check that out. So the reason I picked this Dolce & Gabbana dress as inspiration is because this dress retails for over $2,000. And the two-piece outfit that I thrifted only cost me $6.50. So I really wanted to challenge myself to see if I could create this $2,000 dress for under $10. Let's just get started by taking a quick look at this Dolce & Gabbana dress. This dress features a square neckline, it's got puff sleeves, it's got a buttonhole placard, it's also got two pockets. It also has a shirt, elastic waist, which will definitely come in handy for when all the restaurants open, hopefully soon. The back is really similar to the front, except for it doesn't have that buttonhole placard. Let's get started. You'll need a sewing machine, an overlocker, iron and ironing board, a ruler, a thrifted outfit, some cotton, bra pads, fabric shears, sewing pins, needle and thread, 1/4 inch elastic, elastic thread, a measuring tape, a seam ripper, and a fabric marker. Let's take a look at the original outfit. I don't have too much fabric to play with because this is actually my size, but this two-piece set features an elastic waistband and the oh-so-fashionable shoulder pad. Here is the game plan. We'll use the top of the existing skirt to cut out a strip of fabric to use as the waistband. Use the rest of the fabric to cut out your piece for the skirt. With whatever fabric I have left over, I'll cut out the pockets. Using elastic thread, I'll shirr the waistband. For the top, we'll use the front piece to create a pattern that looks something like this. We'll do the same with the back piece. I'll explain this a little more in depth later. I won't be adding anything to the width of the sleeve because I don't want it to be too puffy, but I will be adding some length. Okay, so I'm gonna start with the skirt part of this project because I think it's gonna be like significantly easier than the top.
And to be completely honest, I haven't really figured out what I'm gonna do with the top yet, or like how to like piece that together. So I am kind of stalling. But anyways, let's get to the skirt.
So because the waistband of this dress is shirred, I'm not gonna be including a zipper, but that does mean that it has to be wide enough to fit either over my hips or my shoulders. The original skirt I know fits over my hips, so I'm gonna be using the entire width of the original like waistband part of the skirt to create that shirred waistband. As for the skirt, if you look at the picture, there's actually a placard for the buttons, but since I just want to be able to like pull this up over my hips, I don't really want to make functioning buttons for this dress, so I'm just gonna make a faux placard, and I'm gonna show you guys how I do that once I have all my pieces cut out. So now I'm just going to seam rip the waist and take out this original elastic, and I'm also gonna seam rip one of the side seams just so I have like a large piece of fabric because like it's just a little easier for me to work with. Now that I've removed the waistband and the original skirt is now one large piece of fabric, I'm just gonna take a couple of measurements to use as a guide. I want the skirt to fall like just a couple of inches above my knee, so the length for me would be 17 inches. And the next thing I need to measure is this height of the waistband. And with my measuring tape, I'm just gonna measure from my under boob to where my waist is, and that measurement for me is 5 inches. So now that I have those measurements, I'm going to go ahead and press this fabric and then cut out the pieces that we need based on the measurements. Let's begin with the waistband. I know the height of my waistband needs to be 5 inches, so I'm actually going to measure and mark to 6 inches to account for seam allowance. Continue this, making a line until you reach the other side. Now, cut along the line you just made. Since I'll be using the original hem of the skirt, I'm only going to be adding a 1/2 inch for my seam allowance, so I'm measuring to 17.5 and making a mark. Now work your way across the skirt, making a line. Now cut along the line you just made. Moving on to the faux placard. This is the top of the skirt and this is the hem of the skirt. I'm just going to take one of my side seams and fold it over. Then, using my measuring tape, I measure 1.5 inches and pin to secure. Give it a press to ensure your fold is nice and crisp. Remove the pins and give it another press for good measure. Pin your side seams together and sew. Once you've sewn your side seams, flip your skirt to the right side. This is the side seam, and this is the crease that we made earlier with the iron. I'm just going to fold the fabric over and pin to secure. Now I'm going to sew a straight stitch about 1 inch away from the fold. So I just finished sewing that faux placket and I wanted to show it to you guys. There's that top stitch that we did, and then this is what it looks like. So that was the original seam, and then we top stitched it. This kind of opens like as if a real placket would. And after we sew the buttons on from the top, these guys, hopefully it will look good. Moving on to the waistband, I've sewn the side seams to that long strip that we cut out earlier. So this is what it looks like.
It's like a weird skinny tube thing.
And I also hemmed this side of it, but we're gonna hem this side as well. So I'm gonna show you guys how I do that right now. Fold your hem over twice and secure with a pin. Do this one more time and bring it to your machine. Once you've secured the initial fold with a couple stitches, fold your hem over twice and sew to secure. Continue this until you finish the entire hem. So here is what the waistband looks like now with both sides hemmed. I've also gone ahead and pressed the seams flat so that they're nice and neat. Now we can attach the waistband to the skirt. And normally I would just have them right sides facing together and do a straight stitch. But the way that this dress is constructed, the hem of the waistband kind of overlaps the top of the skirt. So this is the top of the skirt. I'm just gonna pin this bottom part of the waistband overlapping about 3/4 of an inch, and then I'm going to sew a straight stitch to attach both pieces together. I've pinned both pieces together, and here you can see where the waistband overlaps the skirt piece. As you can see, that's the seam that joins the two pieces together, and that's the overlap. So now that we're done with this, we can start shirring. So to create the shirring effect, the bobbin thread in your machine needs to be elastic thread, and to do that you have to actually load it manually because you can't load your bobbin with elastic thread on your machine. So you're just gonna manually load your bobbin, and the key is to not stretch the elastic thread as you're loading. Now that I'm done loading the bobbin, I'm just going to insert the bobbin in my machine like I normally would. Sew a straight stitch, and the elastic should start gathering and stretching your fabric like this. Continue sewing until you've reached the end. So I've definitely been reminded of my love-hate relationship of shirring, and now I remember why I've only done it one other time, because I thought I was doing such a great job, and then I flipped it over, and what is this hot mess? I don't know. So I'm gonna go figure this out, and then I will come back here to try to fix this. Take 2. I am going to adjust the stitch length to a longer stitch length and see if this fixes the problem. If any of you guys have any helpful tips on shirring, please share them with me in the comments below because I obviously need help. Take 2 was a bust, so here's take 3. Will I finally be able to do this? Alas, shirring 3, Tiffany 0. Okay guys, so I think I'm accepting defeat. I'm just gonna use like regular elastic, like a 1/4 inch elastic, and just sew it on the bottom to create the shirt effect. I just can't figure out how to do this right now. Oh, you can just do this again because you've done this before. But then, like, I don't know, it's just too hard. Daisy's too hard. Yeah, I don't know what to do now. Thank you. Good morning. It is a new day. I am way less cranky. You know what? I'm not even cranky at all. I have my coffee. I'm ready to go. Because I'm such a stubborn person, I'm like not quite ready to let go of this shirring thing. And I spent many hours last night on YouTube just researching how to do it. And I think I have a solution. This is what I was using yesterday. It's like elastic string and it's a little bit thicker, but I went through my things this morning and I have this elastic thread which is significantly thinner than this string is. So I think that this is gonna cause less bobbin problems. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to use this, and if all fails, then I will just use this thicker elastic to sew on the waistband. But I'm gonna try this first and hope that it works. So I've decided to just try it on a scrap piece of fabric so that I don't keep just sewing on top of my project, and let's just see if this works. Okay, it's totally working here. With my newfound confidence, I start shirring my dress. In fact, I feel so confident that I go ahead and shirr multiple rows. Okay, so I have good news and bad news. While I've successfully figured out how to shirr the fabric, somehow the elastic is just not stretchy enough, so when I put it on, it literally just falls right off me. So now I think I am going to have to just use the elastic, and I'm gonna save shirring for a different project. For my sanity, I've decided to just put the skirt aside for now and start working on the top. Boy, was I naive to think that the skirt was going to be the easy part of this tutorial. I was so wrong. But I'm gonna start seam ripping this, and hopefully this project turns out okay. I've seam ripped the top as well as removed the buttons, and here are the front pieces laid out. To create the front part of the top of the dress, I'm actually going to switch these pieces and join them in the center in the same way we made the faux placard for the skirt. So I've sewn those two pieces together and created that faux buttonhole placard. Now we can start drafting our pattern for the top. Because the top is ruched and gathered, I really don't need that many precise measurements, but I do need to know how tall, like the height that I want it to be. So for me, that's 7.5 inches. And then I also need to know the measurement from where the top meets the sleeve, that point, to my under my armpit. And for me, that's 5 inches. With my ruler, the first thing I'm going to do is draw a nice long line at the bottom of the top. The width of the front of my waistband is 18 inches, so now I'm measuring 9 inches from the center and marking on both sides. The height of the top needs to be 7.5 inches, so I'm marking 8 inches to account for seam allowance from the original line we drew and marking all the way across. Then, measure 8 inches from the center and make a mark. With your ruler, draw a line from the mark we just made to the 9-inch mark we made previously. Now, measure 7.5 inches from the center and mark. Creating a slight curve with your measuring tape, measure 5.5 inches from that point and mark. Now draw a slight curve from those 2 points to create the bottom of your armhole. Repeat on the other side. Now cut. Now repeat those steps to draft the back piece. The only differences are that the height of the back piece is 6 inches and I drew a more extreme curve for the armhole. Now that we've cut out our front and back pieces, I also wanted to show you guys that I actually cut out a lining piece for the front piece. And the reason I did that was because I hate wearing bras, so I'm basically just creating a pocket so that I can insert these pads in there. And these I think I just got from like either a sports bra or like a bathing suit that I bought. So now I'm gonna attach the front and back pieces together, and then we're gonna move on to the sleeves. Here is the original sleeve. While I didn't want to add anything to the width to make it puffier, I did want to add some length. So I cut out this piece from the extra fabric we had from the skirt, and I'm going to sew them together. Here are the 2 pieces sewn together to create my new sleeve. I've trimmed the seam allowance on the piece on the left side, but I've actually left the seam allowance for the piece on the right at about 3/4 inch. The reason I did this is because I'm going to sew a straight stitch about 1/2 inch from the original seam to create a casing for my elastic. I've gone ahead and sewn the straight stitch to create the casing for our elastic. So now what we need to do is to measure how much elastic we need. I'm gonna go ahead and mark the length that I need with a Sharpie, but I'm also going to add 1 inch on either side so that it makes things just a little bit easier for sewing. Okay, now that you've cut your piece out, you're going to attach a safety pin to one of the ends of the elastic. Now you're going to feed this through the casing. Before you feed the entire thing through the casing, we're gonna wanna secure the end that's still sticking out to the sleeve. So we're just gonna sew a straight stitch right along this line. Now that this end is secure, we can go ahead and pull the other end out. Stitch this end down the way that you did on the other side. Now you should have something that looks like this. Now I'm going to sew the sides of the sleeve together and hem the sleeve as well. When you're done with that, repeat with the other sleeve. Now that I have both sleeves completed, I'm gonna go ahead and attach these to the top. I've also gone ahead and overlocked all of the raw edges in hopes that this makes hemming the top a little bit easier later. So I've gone ahead and hemmed and pressed all the seams down. Now we're gonna attach the elastic. So initially I was gonna just cut one long strip of elastic and then sew it all around this top opening, but I feel like elastic just hasn't been my friend in the last 2 days. So I'm gonna play it safe and I'm gonna cut out 4 separate strips of elastic. One for the front, one for the back, and then 2 for the sleeves, and then attach them separately. After you've secured your elastic to your garment with a couple of stitches, you're going to stretch the elastic as you sew so that when you release it, the fabric gathers underneath it. Repeat this for each section. I've gone ahead and attached the elastic all the way around the opening of the top, and this is what it looks like now. So I'm just gonna put this on to make sure that everything fits nicely. Wow, I'm not mad about how this turned out. Before we sew this to the rest of the dress, we are going to sew in the bra pads. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna put them in between like this layer and that lining layer and like kind of adjust until you feel like it's in the right spot. And once you think it's in the right spot, I'm just gonna pin it in place. Now I'm gonna do the other side. Now that I have it pinned in place, I'm actually gonna sew it down, but I'm only gonna sew it to the lining piece. So you won't be able to see any stitches in the top. It's only going to be attached to this lining piece. I've attached the top to the waistband, which was already attached to the skirt. And as you can tell, it looks super weird right now because the waist is so wide, but that's going to change once we include the elastic. And I'm just gonna use the same elastic I used in the top, this 1/4 inch elastic. And I think I'm gonna sew maybe 6 or 7 rows to create that shirred effect. Unfortunately, I don't have enough elastic. So I'm gonna go to the store, and when I come back, we'll finish this dress. So I'm currently in Joann's, trying to get more elastic for the skirt, and hopefully they have what I want. Okay, doesn't seem like they have that many things, but perfect. I'm back from Joann's with my elastic, and we are ready to start sewing this onto the waistband. So, as you can see, the waistband's pretty tall. It's like 6 inches. So I'm just gonna go ahead and sew rows of this elastic and hope that this turns out nice. For my first row of elastic, I'm going to use the seam where the skirt meets the waistband as a guide. Guys, that took way longer than I expected, but I finally finished shirring the waistband. Ta-da! Let me show you guys the inside. I ended up sewing 9 rows of elastic, but I'm really happy with how it turned out. So let's move on to finishing this dress. I only have 2 things left to do. We have to put the pockets on the front and then sew the buttons down. I hand sewed the buttons, and with whatever fabric I had left over, I cut out pockets and pinned and sewed them to the dress. Even though this dress isn't really my style, I'm actually really happy with how it turned out. Though I do have a love-hate relationship with this dress because I don't know if I love it because I worked so hard on it or if I hate it because I had to work so hard on it. In any case, I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial, and as always, thank you so much for watching.